Hello everyone, it's BYG Agami back with another video. Welcome to a new series on the channel where I will be reviewing Yu-Gi-Oh! GX episodes 1 through 5. So basically I'm going to be reviewing GX episodes, but 5 episodes per video. So I'm going to do that with the dub as well. I want to see how this does. And comment down below if you guys would actually rather see a big arc review rather than 5 episodes. But I will tell you this though. If I do a arc rather than a 5 episodes a week thing or something like that, or 5 episodes per video, there's going to be a lot of information that's not going to be in that big huge arc review. Now, what I know for a fact is that if I do 5 episodes, there's going to be much more detail and much more information within that video rather than the huge arc review. So I don't know, just tell me what you guys think. I'm going to do this for the English dub as well. So today it's a Wednesday and the English dub review will be coming out on a Friday, so just wait 2 days, stay tuned for the channel. And if this video does well, I will do more reviews for GX. And once I do complete GX, I'm going to move on to 5Ds, Zexal, Arc 5, as well as Vrain's reviews. I'm going to be doing Vrain's reviews weekly, so there will not be no need to do Vrain's as a huge arc, or I might do that when time comes. But basically, let's just go right into the video, and let's just talk about Episode 1 of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX subbed, and I'm going to be going by the Japanese names for the most part. And let's talk about Episode 1 known as Yugi's Hair. And some basic information about my Yu-Gi-Oh! Watching is that currently I was watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monster subbed. I did that for basically a whole year, and truth be told, I was very much not a fan of it, at least for Duelist Kingdom. Once I got into Battle City, I liked it. But now we're in the Virtual World arc, and to be quite honest, it's boring. It's really boring. It's fun in the sense of it's just a random strange arc with random shit in it. And I like that when Yu-Gi-Oh! Does that, because you got like the Mayari arc along with the Virtual World arc. The earlier one during Duelist Kingdom or after Duelist Kingdom, those 2 filler arcs that we got, the Little Girl from America along with the Legendary Heroes Quest arc, that sort of reminds me of the Monster Hunter or Monster World arc in the manga during the Bakura chapters. So it sort of reminds me of that, like an RPG-esque game. And Duelist Kingdom you can sort of take as an RPG game. But regardless, there really wasn't that many good episodes in Duel Monsters that really stuck out to me. Like, I would say one really good episode in Duel Monsters is that one when Junichi's dueling Esperoba along with Junichi dueling Rashid. But this episode in GX, episode 1 titled Yugi's Hair, is possibly, in my opinion, the greatest episode that I've seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! Thus far. It does a wonderful job on connecting Duel Monsters to GX. They don't forcefully do it. They just make it seem like it happens, and once it happens, it just fades past your head, but you still have it in the back of your mind. That's the best way to approach it, rather than just constantly reinforcing that this is like a sort of a series that's connected to the original series. It's sort of in the back of your head rather than in the front when you're watching it. So I do like that they added that, but it starts off with Yugi, and Judai's run into the academy. He's late, he missed a train or something like that. You know, Judai being a clumsy person as he already is. And he bumps into Yugi, and oh lord, bro. Even though I'm not really nostalgic towards the Japanese side of Duel Monsters simply because I didn't watch it when I was a child, just hearing him and having that sense in the back of my head that this is 10 years after the ending of Duel Monsters, which I don't know if it's 10 years, I just read that somewhere, but I don't know where the source is, and I've been trying to find it. And you guys know that I like to find sources. Like, everything I say about Takahashi, except for the airport thing, about like someone stole his packages from the airport, and there was a lot of plot ideas in it for the ending portion of the manga. I have facts. Like, I do have the interviews like stored on my computer. So the thing is that I'm really good with like information and stating and like having factual stuff, because I do like to archive things. The thing is that I couldn't find that 10-year gap source, and I'm trying to find it, and once I do find it, I'll definitely talk about it in one of my reviews. But yeah, just getting back onto the topic of this is 10 years after the ending of the Duel Monsters anime, and we see Yugi all grown up. And of course they shoved Yugi in there simply because of the title, along with nostalgia and sales in it. And of course, you know, people are going to watch it with Yugi in the title. But like the way that they sort of met each other, it just seemed like fate just guided them there. And dude, I just love it. Like, he gives him Win Karibo, and Win Karibo is basically his partner. I'll talk about that later on in this review. Win Karibo gives Judai advice. He helps out Judai, and Yugi stated this to him. He's like, this is a lucky card. It's calling to you, which I like, but I like the little dub's iteration on that. And I'll definitely talk about that in my dub review coming Friday. But as we go more and more into the episode, we see that Judai comes to the academy, the entrance exams test. And what's cool about that is they talk about Yugi, they show Yugi, and then they skip right to the Duel Academy entrance exam. We see Kaiba Dome in the background, right? Along with Kaiba's name. Like, they do talk about Kaiba Land or something along the lines of Kaiba Land sort of owning this area, which is quite cool because they did a really nice job on connecting Kaiba in this first episode as well. Even though he wasn't physically there, they still did a nice job on that. But as the plot goes on and on, we get to see Misawa. I forget his last name, but he's basically Bastion for all you English dub viewers out there. He's Bastion, and man, they hit the nail with this character. Now, he's dueling an entrance exam person he's trying out at the academy. I think he was number 2. No, he was number 1 from the entrance exam, and like he came in first place. And when he was dueling, now the funny neat thing is that they do a lot of DM references, DM callbacks. That's what I like to call it. They did a lot of DM callbacks in this episode. We got Yugi, a Karibo iteration given to Judai, the Kaiba Dome, Kaiba, all within a minute. Well, not a minute, but I would say all within the first act of this episode. And the thing is, when Misawa was dueling that duel entrance exam person, Misawa had Voice Raider along with the Ring of Destruction. Now, whose cards are that? When you look at Duel Monsters, whose cards are that? And that's Kaiba's. And then the entrance exam person, the tester, basically had Big Shield Gardna. Now the thing is that that's Yugi's card, so I like that they added that little neat thing in there. But let's talk about Sho. Now, Sho, or Cyrus for the English dub viewers, Sho is such a low confident person, which I like the fact that he isn't later on in the later episodes. Within like the first 10 episodes, he sort of boosts that confidence up, but then it just downfalls again. But getting back on the topic, which was that Sho, I like Sho, like, as he's introduced, he's sort of low confident. He's like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to pass my test exams, this, that. And then we get to see the introduction of Asuka. Now, Asuka, I don't know how to like talk about this, because she comes off as a knowledgeable person. She comes off, I would say, as the most chill person out of there. Actually, no, of course not compared to Judai, but like when I'm watching that episode, I just feel like you already know her. Like, she doesn't really need an introduction. It's quite strange, and we do get a lot of, I would say, information about her in episode 5 to 6, which she has a lot of personal family problems. But still, it's just, what's it called? She does a nice job on sort of fitting in with the story. And let's talk about Manjumen, Chaz. And the thing with Manjumen is that he comes off as a proper dick. He talks about how, like, he took a year off or something like that, which I didn't know. I don't really understand what he was trying to say. But Manjumen comes off as a dick as usual, and the Yu-Gi-Oh rival needs to be a dick, at least in my opinion. So they hit the nail with that, along with the fact that Manjumen had his little goons, his little buddies, his little friend groups. Now, when I was watching the dub version, I'll talk about that in my review, I started dying because of one of the voices. But anyways, yeah, Manjumen had his little dick riders, like sort of sucking up to him because he's Manjumen. And we get Kronos. Kronos is by far the funniest character in the first episode. Such a funny character. Like, the thing with him is that I wouldn't say he's a Jinochi. Jinochi or Joey. Jinochi in the sense of a character, because there's no character that comes close to Jinochi in terms of how much of a range he can play in terms of like personality and character. Like, the thing with Jinochi is that he can be taken serious as a joke, but at the same time serious. So he's just a very dynamic character in that regard. But Kronos, we see that he's mad at, what's his name, Judai, because, first of all, he's like, yeah, screw this dude, we don't need him, he came late. And then Principal Samjima, and I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but the principal of the Duel Academy comes in, he's like, yeah, you did this last year, yeah, you're gonna let him duel. And then Kronos was like, okay, I'll duel him, but I'll use my deck. And we see the first duel for Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, which I love. I love that little Kronos versus, Judai duel, because the thing is that Judai, he comes in, and I think, yeah, his entrance exam number was 110, and Kronos was calling him a dropout boy, and Judai is dueling Kronos. Now, through that duel, it was sort of, I wouldn't say back and forth, Kronos was sort of getting the upper hand in the beginning portions. But the thing with that is that what I think that led to, and I'll spoiler alert, what led to Kronos' downfall, of course, Judai being the prodigy duelist that he is, but he sort of didn't, like, respect Judai as a duelist. Like he thought that as he was a school dropout, he sort of undermined him because he didn't think that Judai was a threat. And Judai summons Flame Wingman along with the Skyscraper card, which gives him an additional 1,000 attack, which ultimately makes him win the duel. But once we see Skyscraper along with Flame Wingman just going on top of it, it's such a beauty to see. But what I like about that episode is that he draws Win Karibo. And once he draws that card, he has a flashback of that scene with him meeting Yugi. And Yugi basically talks about in that flashback, oh, this is a lucky card. And that's what ultimately led him to win the duel. And he talks about how Win Karibo, you're my Aibo, which means partner. And if you guys don't know, and if you guys have never watched the Japanese version of Duel Monsters, Aibo is very much a popular term in Yu-Gi-Oh! After Duelist Kingdom, because of the fact that Tim and Yugi really never talked up until, I would say, episode 40? Actually, no, they did talk in the Bakura filler portion. Like around episode 13, where Bakura basically took Yugi's friends and they were having like that card. They were having a duel, and basically Yugi's friends were their favorite monsters. Like Junichi was Flame Swordsman and Yugi was Black Magician. But they started calling each other Aibo in Battle City around that time. So it was cool to see that. And the thing is that this episode's so great in the sense that, dude, like, they just did a wonderful job doing that whole connection, along with all these characters that are introduced within the first, like, episode. Like, it just seems like they were already, like, it's perfect in the sense of, okay, they're in the building, like, all the characters are already established. Well, they aren't fully established, but they're already there, and they don't have to come out through, like, other means, such as, like, a character coming from the island or going to the Duel Academy island, because they're students, so they're already at the entrance exam. So I do like that. The music in this episode was beautiful. I do like Judai's theme song a lot, but as we dive more into the episode, and it sort of ends off in a good way, and I do like that. And the thing is that Judai, my favorite quote from that episode is Judai saying, heroes always win, because when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh, that's very fucking true. At the end of the day, if you lose and you're a hero, you're gonna win simply because of writing. I'm gonna give this episode a 10 out of 10 simply because I think it's one of the greatest episodes in Yu-Gi-Oh, and it was a really well written episode. So now let's move on to episode 2, which is titled Flame Wingman. So this episode starts off with them going to the Duel Academy, and Judai's just sleeping in his in the helicopter that he's in, and everyone else is just looking out, and we get to see the dorms like such as Osiris, Red, Ra, the Raw dorm, as well as the Obelisk dorm. And when you look at the dorms, you see how preppy the Obelisk dorm is. Freaking Kaiba being biased as heck. The Raw dorm looks pretty normal, and then we see the Osiris dorm, and it just looks shit compared to those. But the thing is, out of all those dorms, I might actually do a video on this. Out of all those dorms, I would bunk in the Osiris dorm, simply because Osiris is my favorite god. But it doesn't matter if I were to live in a preppy building, like if I were to go to like the Duel Academy. It depends who you hang out with. That's what ultimately gives you a good experience or not. And the thing is, all the people at the Raw as well as the Obelisk dorms seem like proper, cocky, just egotistical dicks. The episode also starts off with Judai going in his dorm and he sees Cyrus, and then we get Hayato. Now, the thing with Hayato is that this dude, he's a funny character. He's really funny. He gets funny later on. In the first few episodes that I'm about to review, he just comes off as this lazy person. Now, when Judai walks in, he thinks he's a koala. And he's like, oh, what are you talking about? Don't call me a koala, bro. And the thing is, the koala reference is very important later on, which I will talk about later on in this review. Or actually probably next review, because Hayato sort of duels someone in his family, and he has to beat him in order to stay on the Duel Academy island. Oh, one thing I forgot to say is that the cons that I had with episode 1 is the fact that they did a horrible job on, like, you know, giving off the fact that this takes 10 years after the Duel Monsters anime. Like, if you were to get a picture of Domino City from Duel Monsters and GX, there's really no huge difference. So that's the only thing I have to say about this, bad about that episode. And I think it was in this episode where Principal Samjaya, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, he talks about the Duel King, this prestigious title that you guys should all be aiming for it. Now, some of the characters such as Judai want to get that title, and I like that. I like that that's their motivation to sort of be the equivalent, to be the next Yugimoto, to be the next Tim. So Judai gets a call from Manjaman. He's like, yo, duel me. We're going to use the anti-card rule, which is sort of banned from the Duel Academy. And they go during the nighttime, which they aren't allowed to. Like, they aren't permitted to do that. So Judai goes and he's with Sho. And the thing is that Asuka, I forget how she comes in there, but she's sort of spectating Judai duel. And Manjaman's there and they duel each other. Now, what I dislike about this episode is the repetition of Flame Wingman. Like, he was in this episode and then he was in the first episode. It's very much the same combo that they used, I think. But the thing is that they're hinting towards like Asuka and Judai. Like, it's not going to become a thing since I spoiled myself. Like, I already knew this like a year ago, basically, even before watching GX Sub. But I just knew that Asuka and Judai weren't going to be a thing. But it's very evident that she does, in fact, have some sort of interest in Judai, and Judai's just clueless as heck. Like, she mentally talks about, like, oh, what an interesting person, or shit like, oh, what would Judai do, like, shit like that. And during the Manjaman and Judai duel, I like it. I like the duel. It's really fast paced. And what I noticed is that, like, at least for the first few episodes of GX, they're like all one episode. And that was cool to see. Oh yeah, one thing I will in fact give this episode is that Manjaman, I forget what card he used, but he used Judai's monster against him, which I've never seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! Shit. The only time I can see that is during the Pandora duel, is when Pandora had a black magician along with the Tim. Now, granted, I haven't seen 5Ds in forever, and my memory's very just like, I don't remember that much about 5Ds, but I don't remember seeing that in 5Ds as well. Actually, no, I remember that during the Jack versus Fake Jack duel, but besides that, I really don't remember anyone using a monster against them. We can talk about Pegasus as well because of his Toon monsters, but I do like that June comes off and like sort of uses Judai's monsters against him. But basically the duel has to wrap up because the security guards are entering in the building, and June has to runs away basically, and he sees that Asuka was looking at him. He sort of blushes. I'm just like, what a fuck. Never mind, but whatever. So like he sort of blushes, and then they go, and Judai's like, no, I gotta stay. He's very much acting like a teenager, just like sort of complaining and shouting. And what I mean by teenager, like a very young teenager, like 13 to 14. So they hit the nail in that regard. So I do like that. But Judai then later reveals that he would have won the duel since he would have drawn Monster Reborn and brought back one of his monsters from the graveyard, which I thought was just freaking horrible. Like, they should have never done that, in my opinion, just because like it sort of defeats the purpose of that whole ambiguous factor that they're gonna give to that, and then it would have sort of built hype up for us, at least for me, because I would love to see who wins that duel, and Judai just sort of ruined it. And I'm going to give this episode of probably like a 8.5, 7.5, somewhere around there. But now let's move on to episode 3, which is titled Eltoid Cyber. Now, Eltoid Cyber is like Asuka's ace card, because I think Judai does just state that in episode 5. But yeah, Asuka duels Judai, but prior information about what happens before that duel is that it starts off in class, right? And Asuka, they sort of, it's very evident that this episode is going to be about Asuka because she answers a question. She comes off as this very smart-ass person. Oh yeah, I got to mention this. I definitely got to mention this. So in episode 2, right, during the Manjaman duel, Judai makes a mistake. He doesn't know something. He doesn't know, like, what this card does, or, like, what, he makes a rookie mistake, I think. And the thing is that Asuka, or I think Manjaman, states that, yeah, you would make a mistake like that. Only us Obelisk Blues would understand it. So I do like that. I like that there's a difference, that they try to show there's a difference in terms of the hierarchy in the dorm system. But Judai would have won that duel, so it really doesn't matter about the difference. But I at least like that they attempted to do that. But Kronos then talks to Sho and tells him, oh, what does field magic do? And Sho sort of, it's like sort of going on a stage and you just sort of get like caught up, or I don't know how to explain it, like your body freezes. Kronos puts a letter that's supposed to be from Asuka in Judai's locker, and it talks about like, oh, please meet me behind the dorm in the Obelisk Blue like locker room or something like that. And Sho opens up the thing because he thought it was his locker. And he's like all happy. He's all happy and shit. This episode is funny, I will say that. And his face lights up. He's like, oh, I'm about to meet Asuka. And we all know, all right? We all know what he was thinking, why he was so happy when he was rowing that boat. He thought he was going to get something. He thought he was going to get something good in return for going there. But if you guys don't know what that is, just wait a few years. But basically what happens is that Sho gets framed because it was actually Kronos. And Kronos was trying to take a picture of Judai looking in the back of the locker room, because that was where the females are at. Like, they were sort of showering there, and it was weird. They were having a conversation about their breasts and shit, and I was like, oh, whatever. So I'm not gonna really talk about it because I find that strange. So anyways, they were like talking about that, and then I think they hear Sho, and Sho's like screaming, Asuka, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming. And Kronos sees that, and he's like, oh shit, it's Sho instead of Judai. And then they sort of kidnap Sho. They take him as hostage, and they put a leash on his neck, which I thought was weird as hell. And Asuka sees this as a perfect timing, even though she knows Judai was framed, like Sho was framed. She sees this as a perfect timing to duel Judai. So she in fact calls Judai the same way that Manjaman does in episode 2. And Manjaman plays the duel between Manjaman plays I would say a little role in this duel. And this is something sort of I caught. But yeah, and they call Judai, and Judai goes there. He doesn't even give two fucks that Sho got framed. He's like, oh, I don't care, let's duel. So I was imagining that since Asuka is very knowledgeable in dueling, that she would freaking murk Judai, but no, that was not the case. Judai would defeated her, and he summons a different monster, which I will, give them that. I think it was Thunder Giant. He summons Thunder Giant and just destroys her, but he uses Monster Reborn, and that was the same card that was gonna defeat Manjaman in episode 2. So I was like, I like how they did that. But I would give this episode a 7. Actually, no, what 6.9, 6.8, somewhere around there to my liking, because it's okay. I really don't see anything like good about this episode. It was just sort of like a slice of life filler-esque episode. Episode 4 is titled 5-Part Fusion. Basically, this starts off with like new pack cards coming, and there was an exam, and we see Sho just praying to Osiris, and he talks about like Monster Reborn. And if you guys don't know what that was sort of reference to, it's the final duel between Yugi and Atim, where he uses Golden Sarcophagus, and he predicts the card that Atim was going to use was the Monster Reborn, and that's how he summons Lifer. So that was kind of cool, but, Judai doesn't even care. He goes late to the thing, and Hayaoto's like, yo, let Judai sleep, bro. It's going to be better for us, because we might actually have an opportunity to be the number 1 and move up to the ranking, which is the Raw dorm. But yeah, anyways, Judai's running, he's dipping, he's trying to get there. And earlier in this episode, there's like helicopters left, right, center, and they're sort of delivering a pack of cards to the Duel Academy. I'm like, oh, do they really need this much security for a freaking plastic card? Or my bad, not a plastic card, but a piece of paper. But it's whatever. So Judai helps this little old lady, and she's the owner of that card shop. So as the exams were done, everyone starts running, just running there. And the thing is that Kronos bought all the cards ahead of time, and he sort of uses those cards and gives it to Manjaman, and Manjaman has another duel with Judai. And I would say this duel is pretty cool. This duel is actually well written. But yeah, I just totally forgot to mention this. In episode 4, when Sho was frozen up and didn't tell us what field magic was, when Judai was about to beat Asuka, when he gets Monster Reborn and he summons Thunder Giant, I think that's the monster's name. If I do say it incorrectly, I will correct myself by like posting a little textual, like by posting some text correction up. And the thing is that once Judai was about to win, like once the duel was in his favor, Sho then says what field magic is to us, the audience, which I like. Even though he got freaking framed, even though people thought he was a pervert, even though he got put on a leash, they did give him justice in that episode. But anyways, this duel happens between Sho. There's a duel that happens between Judai and Manjaman again, and this duel, it was cool. Like, we see a lot of Kaiba's cards, like the XYZ dragons and such. Like, there are 2 additional cards, I think, like a W something or along those lines. And the thing is, Manjaman summons this huge ass Transformer-esque, like Power Ranger type card, and it has all these body parts, and it's really cool. And the thing is that Judai summons Win Kuribo, his Aibo, and he summons it, and then he activates a card which makes it level 10 Kuribo, and that's what makes him win the duel. So I like that he wins the duel through Kuribo. So for that reason, I'm going to give this episode 7.5, something like that. Oh yeah, and also what I want to say is that this episode is so fucking beautiful in terms of the ending. Everyone's looking at Judai, the school dropout that Osiris read, the person that looks like a failure in life from the perspective of the Duel Academy members, wins that duel. And then he gets all this praise from all these people, and he just becomes popular throughout the school. and he wins, and everyone just praises him, and Misawa's like, oh yeah, you know, this person could be a good rival. And I forgot to mention that in episode 2 they meet each other again, and they're talking about this whole rival thing. And in episode 1 they talk about, oh, your Misawa on the papers was number 1, but Judai goes up to him before his Kronos duel and says that, yeah, you're number 2. And then Misawa's like, what are you talking about? I'm number 1. And then he's like, no, I'm number 1 and I'm gonna prove it. So he's confident, and that's what I love about Judai's character, man. He's confident as fuck, but he does have he does have proof to back it up, which I do love. So they're dueling, alright, and the ending of the episode is just beautiful. And the thing is that since Judai was like the best person, and he was gonna go up a level to the raw dorm, he wins the duel and he could prove himself. So he technically should be on the raw dorm. But when the episode ends off, like when the people are praising him, they're all sort of sad. They're like, oh man, I miss Judai, man. And you see Hayato, he's like in his bed and shit. He's sort of sad as well. And then Judai just opens the door. He's like, guys, I'm back. And it was a lovely episode. So I'm gonna boost that shit up to an 8.5 just because of me thinking about that right now. So they all say hi, and Sho's crying. It's just a wonderful episode. Like, honestly, that's like a series ending in my opinion. Like, just that's how grand of an ending that is. So there really aren't any cons thus far in this episode. But I will say in episode 3 is that he sort of beat Asuka, who comes off as a knowledgeable person. And it's like he's beating all these top tier people in the higher dorms, which doesn't really make sense to me. And in episode 2, I didn't really like how he revealed that. But besides that, thus far, all these episodes have been good for GX. Episode 5 is titled Dark Fiend Deck. And this is the episode, I don't know how to take this episode. I sort of hate this episode. I think it's like possibly one of the worst episodes in Yu-Gi-Oh, to be quite honest. So it starts off with Asuka just putting a flower on the floor, and that gives you the sense of, wow, this is going to be a dark episode. And they sort of tell nightmare stories as well. Like, they each draw a card, and they have to tell a story on that caliber of the level that they drew. But anyways, the dorm head, Daijoto, and I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but he has a cat named Pharaoh, which I find very adorable. But yeah, he draws a 5-headed dragon, which is a Duel Monsters card that was featured in the Mayari arc. And the thing is that this had me dying. Even though this episode was shit, the humor was there. Because if you look at Hayato's face, dude, this dude is making the funniest faces I've ever seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, just proper funny. So I started dying. But yeah, the professor talks about how there's this abandoned dorm that happened before him. And the thing is that we can sort of say that this was probably a few years. This wasn't like a urban legend. And they talk about how they were studying the Millennium items. Actually, no, not the Millennium items. Rather, the Yamino games, the Game of Darkness, along with the Millennium items. And they're making it up to be an urban legend, like a folktale. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? This takes 10 years after the ending of Duel Monsters. Battle City was recorded. Battle City was all over the place. There's pictures. I guarantee you, if we were to put logic in this, and I know there's not supposed to be logic put in Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's just like, I guarantee you could do freaking research on the Millennium Puzzle. You look at Yugi Moto, he has the Millennium Puzzle for the most part of the series, so you just can't tell me that this is an urban legend. And this is why I think it's just one of the worst episodes. So they actually go to that place, and Kronos sets up with this dude named Titan, who's basically fucking Panic 2.0. And if you guys don't know who Panic is, he's in episode like 15 to 16 of Yu-Gi-Oh, 14 to 15, which is probably like one of the best like drawn episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, just the colors, like, I love the colors in the episode, and I'll post screen caps of it right now, and you guys will see why. Just very bright, and I don't know, it's very different from the normal colors. But yeah, he's Panic, and he's sort of, you can get that Panic vibe. His name's Titan, and Kronos like makes a deal with him, like, oh yeah, I'll pay you this much, and they all go there, and then we see like tablets, right? Tablets, and they talk about the Millennium items, and I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, if you're gonna make the Millennium items seem like an urban legend, then make the time gap longer. But the fact is that in episode 50 something, 53, 54, something along those lines of Duel Monsters, or 52 I think, but of Duel Monsters, Anzu and Atim go to the Domino City Museum because fate sort of guides them there. Anzu just brings them there. And Atim talks to Ishizu, and Ishizu tells Atim that he's a pharaoh, and he looks at the memory tablet along with the palette next to it. And on that palette, it's very evident that we see the Millennium item. We see the 3 Egyptian god cards. We see Black Magician. We see Atim, Kaiba, or the White Beast Handler, along with Blue Eyes. So you can't just tell me that that tablet isn't available to look at online, even though it got brought back to Egypt. Still, there has to be pictures of it. It's just a mind fuck, right? When you put logic into it. But anyways, this goes on. We see Titan, and Titan sort of kidnaps Asuka, uses her as hostage, and they figure out, because they hear her scream along with Altoid Cyber on the floor, they run in the direction of the screaming. And Titan's supposed to come off as a badass. You see his Millennium Puzzle, and it just looks horrible. Like, this episode was actually drawn just horribly as well, in my opinion. It was just bad. And, you know, he has this little makeshift Millennium Puzzle. It looks fake as hell. It doesn't even look like a damn puzzle. Like, that's how badly drawn it was. So he sort of comes off, and they sort of make him out to look like a badass and intimidating. And, you know, he has a Demon Skull deck, which is basically Summon Skull. And it was cool to see Summon Skull, but besides that, there was really nothing cool about this dude. And yeah, the Yamino game of this episode was freaking, you know, like Mullik versus Bakura, where your body sort of disappears, like that Yamino game, the ultimate Yamino game. As well as, I think, a Tim versus Mullik. I'm not up to that part yet. I watched a dub, and I totally forget what happens. But, yeah. They make Titan to come off as this badass, and I'm just like, no. He's not. And, you know, they make this Yamino game. And episode 6, I think, is where they notice that it's sort of false. But I can't talk about that, even though I do really want to talk about it. Because I'm in the mood. I'm in the mood of breaking this episode apart, or episode 6 apart. But I'll just leave it as that. But yeah, I don't really like this episode. And what I noticed is that they're trying to add Duel Monster story in to GX, which you can't just do that, alright? Leave Duel Monster story alone. Of course, add in the DM callbacks, but do not put the story in an episode. It just turns out horrible like this, and it sort of makes for contradictions alongside just like shit that they should know. It's really bad, in my opinion, what this episode turned out to be. And I'm getting a lot of panic vibes from Titan, along with, you know, they're sort of hyping him up to be like a Mullik. Or actually, no, I take that back. Not like a Mullik, but they're sort of stealing the Yamino game that Mullik used against Bakura along with a Tim. So for that reason, I'm going to give this episode like a 5. But because of Hayoto's faces early on in the episode, I'll give it a 5.5, just to be nice to this episode. This is my breakdown / review for GX episodes 1 through 5 in the Japanese dub. I do want to say thank you very much if you have watched thus far. If you guys have watched this far, might as well just leave a like on the video. That would be greatly appreciated. Along with that, in the description, there is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Facebook and Twitter fan page regarding Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. And if you guys do want to actually talk to us, Dimsy and I, and communicate faster with us, you can check out that Facebook fan page as well as the Twitter fan page. Now, the Twitter fan page is much more for news, while the Facebook fan page is for news along with a little community that we're growing in. So if you guys do want to check the Facebook fan page out, which I would recommend you guys to check it out down in the description below, as well as please leave a like on this video. One thing I forgot to mention is that on the 21st, 2 days from now, or a Friday, I will be posting my English dub review for GX episodes 1 through 5. Now, if you guys want to check that out, because I'm gonna add a whole new perspective on that, because it's a whole new dub, as well as, I would say, a whole new story, a little bit. It's not fully like a complete new story, but that's the video for today. Thank you very much for watching this far, guys. I really do appreciate it. Have a great day.